center line that go down White Oak, and it shows us in relation to the Tennessee River, Kentucky Lake, and you see that on the pink colored little box on the lower left-hand side. So that gives us an idea of what kind of elevations we're dealing with water level. I guess the relevant thing to look at here is the blue line. As you go down the blue line and you look at it, you see this huge wave of sediment. That's actually what we're picking up, sort of kind of at the edge of the influence of the Tennessee River during flood stage. And this shows the relationship of White Oak to that particular location. So currently we're working with TWRA, and I do want to point out, I just would like to say, you know, thanks Director Carter and your staff. I think our relationship with TWRA is better than it ever has been. We've got a lot of cooperative projects. Chairman Woodson, I think you mentioned earlier, you know, collaboration. We're collaborating with TWRA, Department of Economic Community Development, the Nature Conservancy, TDEC, and TDOT, and City of Jackson. We just got to work tourism in there on this one project, and we'll have everybody covered. So. But this right here is this is data that we're collecting. TWRA acquired a lot of data loggers, pressure transducers, which we've located at strategic locations around the basin. So these are water level measurements that we actually see following a storm event, so we can tell, you know, how much water is coming through, how quickly, what's happening. And this right here just illustrates one storm event. This is a pressure transducer that shows the water level elevations, how quickly it rises, how quickly it falls, where it comes from. So up here we have White Oak Canal, Middleton, Mud, and we're looking at Saltillo Road, which is way down at the lower end of that particular watershed. So this is great data that we can use to inform our design and make something that works. Here we are on a day dragging kayaks, going out and collecting data from our data loggers. We've got about 10 of them out there. Oftentimes TWRA totes us around in some of their vehicles. This particular day we went at it by ourselves. This is part of my team of nerds. I affectionately call them nerds in our office, a couple engineers, scientists, and so we're out here collecting that data. So what we think, you know, in looking at this, I mean, this is one of the most highly dysfunctional drainage systems in West Tennessee, and I've been in them all. Now, we have some others, but we do think that we can restore this, and we can make this functional with the knowledge of where the sediment's coming from, with our restoration design techniques. So what's illustrated up there is the approximate location of where these channels would come together, bearing in mind some channels are carrying a lot of sediment, others are carrying a lot of water, and then elevations in the floodplain that we've gathered from LIDAR so we can maintain the slopes that are sufficient to move the sand through the system. Because we move the sand through the system and we process the sediment in the floodplain. And there are 3 little boxes up there, white boxes with red around them. Those are actually water control structures. We don't like those. TWRA doesn't like those. It's a maintenance issue, but we feel to restore this and to maintain, and we honestly feel like we can improve hunting opportunities down here with better access. So that's sort of strategic to how we're working through this. So what does this look like, you know, in the end? This is Crooked Creek in Carroll County between Huntington and Paris. This is a 2-mile meandering stream restoration project. You actually see the little wiggles through there. This is what the channel looks like now. This, you see some pictures up there, construction in 2010, seasonally ponded wetland, the meandering channel 5 years later, and you actually see bottomland hardwood timber thriving out there because bottomland hardwood timber grows really well into ponded wetlands. This is Stokes Creek Phase 1 in the Tigrit WMA, and this is taken with an aerial drone. It's a little fuzzy. On the right side of the screen, you see an old canal that was dysfunctional. Up through the middle of the project, you see a meandering channel. This was done in conjunction with TWRA. It's on, like I said, TWRA's property. This is Stokes Creek Phase 2, which we just completed this past year. We removed portions of an old railroad levee through the North Fork Forkadere floodplain, and we constructed this particular channel. So about 3.5 miles at this location where this is constructed. And this is one of Baxter Bottoms, Phase 1 in Tipton County, over in the Mason community between Mason and Covington. So another example, Phase 2, and we just completed Phase 3. And this is a project sort of kind of more adjacent to an urban area. This is in conjunction with TDOT, Highway 412 off Old Bells Highway. Angie, you might know where that one is. Yeah. All right, so this is it. We think it'll work. You know, We think we can restore functional drainage at this location. We can improve management of excess sediment entering into the WMA. We can give big ecological lift on aquatics, bottomland hardwoods, seasonally planted areas. It's good for neotropical migrants, which is a bird that flies up from South America and nest up here in our bottomland hardwood forest, which are somewhat dwindling now. Bat habitat, we think we can advance, avoid, and reduce flood on adjoining property owners. A big part of what we'll do is if we do proceed with this design, we'll do some, it's called HECRAS modeling, hydraulic modeling, so we can establish what expectations the farmers, that adjoin the property. I mean, if we get this kind of flood event, you're gonna get, don't plant corn, plant beans, so a little later. But so we can give them that information. Improved access to the WMA for hunting, maintenance, and recreation. And if you've ever been to Middle White Oak Swamp, access for maintenance and issues like that is very, very critical. It's going to be lower cost to TWRA on managing this, and certainly for us on annual maintenance. And basically, that's sort of kind of it in a nutshell. That was a big nutshell, I know, but that's it. And Director Carter, I just took a picture. I did not harass the wildlife, okay? So no tickets from me today.
David, thank you so much for coming. That was an excellent presentation from the history and geology and a much better understanding. Thank you. So, and I think it's fair to say that, obviously, from your presentation, you fight this fight all over West Tennessee.
Absolutely, yes. That's a critical part of our mission. It states in there, where practical, restore natural stream and floodplain dynamics. And to date, in the past 5 to 10 years, we've probably built about 30 miles of meandering channel, and we go out and we collect science, we monitor them, that really function well.
Well, here's the hard question. So I think you ended by saying, here's what we can do, but is that what the department is going to do, or where are we in that?
Well, we're a small, as I told Director Carter, he said, do you want us to pay for it? I said, we love to spend other people's money more than we do ours. Really, the way that we're set up, we're a very small agency, and the money that we have available annually to construct projects like this is $1.2 million. Now, a big part of that goes to maintenance of our existing infrastructure and things of that nature. So we don't have a lot of money. And right now, we're sitting on top of $20 million of grants on a lot of flood, riverine restoration, that type of stuff, so our money's encumbered for years to come. We don't have the money to build this project. We're looking, in some places to try to come up with some grant dollars. We'll be working with Director Carter on that. We don't have it.
Thank you very much. Any committee members have a question for David?
I don't have any questions, David. I just want to thank you for coming today. I want to thank the Tennessee River Farmers. I know some of these guys personally. I've known them for years, and some of them I've just got to know. But I appreciate you coming. This is a project that's important to me. It's in my district. I definitely want to see it fixed. I'm also realize that we don't have $3 million that we can do it with. I do feel like your solution will work. I do think we need to work with our legislative partners and every partner we have to get this project done. As far as proceeding today, I don't see that we can do anything as far as today. But the main thing is I just want these guys to know that, in my opinion, we are going to proceed with something. We just have to secure funding. I think all of you realize that. We've talked on a private basis and at meetings in Savannah. But definitely a problem has to be fixed. I want the commission to know that. These guys, their living depends on it. And I think it's important that we do our part. They're doing their part. So we need to do our part on our property.
The eastern drainage that we don't own, what happens when you fix the WMA part? What happens when it gets off of our property?
Right. Well, and that's a section that we do. Our amphibious track hoe will go through there routinely. It's pretty open. I mean, it works pretty well. In these projects, what it's all about is, sediment in equals sediment out, and actually keeping the shear stresses up in the channel to move it. So I think it stays open. We continue to maintain that, on an as-needed basis if we have log jams or something like that. It is complicated by the Tennessee River being right there with those floods.
TWRA is involved in this because we own the property. Is TWRA responsible for this problem?
Being an engineer and not an attorney, I don't think I want to answer that question. Can I dodge that one?
Not really. I mean, you're here
yeah.
asking for money, and
Yeah.
I want to know if it's,
Well,
if it's our fault that this is like this. Is it something that we have done? Should we have done something, or are we just involved because it belongs to us?
It's your property, you have drainage that goes through there. I mean, the argument could be made that you're responsible for maintaining the drainage through there. If it affects upstream landowners, there was a lawsuit over the past couple of years, and TWA paid a fine to a landowner.
But it was because we own the property, not because of something that we did that was negligent.
No, you didn't do anything. You inherited a swamp with a lot of legacy sediment in it, and a dysfunctional drainage system that needs to be,
Who did the drainage, the dredging of who was that? Was that Corps of Engineers? Or?
that was most likely, it was a drainage districts in the
Or
early
was that you?
1900s. Certainly not, yeah, I'm not that old. But what happened with the drainage laws, drainage districts formed, and there was a tax put on everyone, and they hired a dredge boat, and they went from point A to point B. They maintained the channels while they could, then the Depression came along, they lost money, they couldn't maintain it, then everything went dysfunctional.
Why does this particular drainage provide so many log jams when there are others that are similar to this? And I'll use Wolf River because I'm most familiar with it. We don't have this kind of log jams and continual piling of timber, and we've got beaver dams, we've got a dredged flume ditch basically comes out of Mississippi and threads out all over the Wolf River bottom up there. But the river functions, there's about 4 different channels that come back in, Ghost River area and all that. We don't have this same issue. What's different about this? Is it the dredge?
No, well,
Dredging or
and just, yeah, with all canals, there's trees on the bank, you're gonna get natural attrition. You saw some of the pictures of the large log jam that actually falls in, moves down the channel. At White Oak, it's, plus you've got all this additional dead and dying timber, which every time you have a windstorm, a whole bunch more falls in. But to really sort of kind of get in the upper parts of the watershed where we have channels that are going down and out, they get larger. It's a phenomenon called head cutting.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
And so those trees will often come in from that. So it's just natural recruitment that comes in. And it doesn't get out of the channel. It stays in the channel and it piles up at one particular location.
David, thank you very much.
Thank
Excellent
you.
presentation. So I appreciate you gentlemen coming. Would anyone like to speak? Please state your name and where you're from for the record. Thank you.
And as you're coming to the microphone, if I could remind our partners in the public and who will be speaking to the chairman, you'll be directing your questions or comments to the chairman and full commission, but really to the chairman. Thank you.
All right. Director Carter, commissioners, especially new commissioners, it is very nice to meet you. It's very nice to be here. My name is Alex Forsbach. I'm a farmer in Savannah, Tennessee, in Hardin County. I'm here on behalf of Tennessee Valley Farmers. A little background on us. We got together in 2013 on a different issue regarding some flooding issues we had with TVA. And since then, we have been communicating very well with TVA. We've gone to every board meeting except maybe 1 or 2. They meet quarterly. We've established a really good communication and understanding of what we'd like to achieve and what they have to achieve. And we've been very civil with it, and we've both sides have been able to listen and come up with a common understanding. So we are trying to take a similar approach with this issue in White Oak Bottom. This issue has been going on for a very long time. There are some very passionate views from our viewpoint, but first off, I'd like to say thank you to the West Tennessee Basin Authority. They have done a tremendous job in investigating this and coming up with their proposal. I can speak on behalf of Tennessee Valley Farmers that we fully support their proposal. They've showed it to us. They've run it by us. We've been able to poke holes in it. We fully support their work. And we also would like to say thank you for the work you've done along the Tennessee River on a different issue with the riverbank stabilization and the research y'all have done for the mussel study. I think I understand that was done free of charge, so we do appreciate that. But moving forward on this, some of the history on White Oak Bottom, it's called White Oak Bottom because it had one of the most beautiful, I didn't see it personally, but from my understanding, is one of the most beautiful stands of white oak timber in West Tennessee. I've heard of valuation of this timber stand. I don't know when that was evaluated, but it was in the high millions of dollars. That stand is no longer there today because of some flooding issues. It turned to basically a wet, saturated soil, and this timber stand naturally died out from whatever changes has happened since TWRA bought this land. Is it fair to say that we all bought this land as a wildlife management area? So you asked Commissioner Cox about why there's so much timber in this area, is because this timber has died and now it is starting to fill up the drainage area. That's my understanding of it. So earlier it was mentioned that there was a $50,000 budget to maintain this area of roughly 5,000 acres. Myself, as a landowner, I'm a farmer, row crop farmer. I can tell you that is not enough money to maintain this property. And that has happened now for years on years, and this problem has gotten worse and worse. Without the maintenance, without removing the log jams, without being able to get in there, it has been harder and harder to get in there to maintain it correctly. So we have a problem that has started to get worse and worse, and we're here today where during non-flood events, in my opinion, we have water that is still coming out on some of the producers' property here and actually killing the soybean crop or the corn crop or whatever commodity they're trying to produce. So we're here to find a resolution. We understand that you have an interest in keeping the wildlife management. We're not asking that there's anything that changes there, but we are asking that it's maintained and the drainage is sufficient to allow the water to pass through. We do have a few of the farmers here that join us. They have a very good understanding of, I think Mr. Essery's father was on the first drainage commission there that actually allowed farmers to go in and maintain the area. It is my understanding that during that time it was maintained to a proper flow. Everybody was happy. It wasn't until TWRA bought the property and told the local farmers that they could no longer maintain this drainage canal themselves, that it would be handled through the TWRA. And that is when the problem started, in my opinion. So we want to have open communication. If there's questions, Commissioner, that you would like to ask, clarifications, I know it's a massive project. It's got a big price tag on it. I did not see Mr. Richardson here this morning. I understand it's his task to help find the funding for it. I know he's got a big task, but we would like to help and facilitate the communication needed to make a decision to go forward. I would ask, I was in front of you at the Bass Pro Shop meeting. I had a very little time to speak there, but that's when it was first brought up, and it was told to us that the new commissioners would like to hear about this issue. So we would like to see some sort of commitment from TWRA to move forward on some sort of resolution, because it is very important to us. So,
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak?
I'd like to say something. I feel really good about these farmers here telling me that they agree with this man's proposal, because we can have all the engineers in the world. Some of the smartest people I ever met in my life are old-time farmers. And if these guys here agree with this guy's idea, I really like that idea. And I'd be for whatever we decide to do to help you guys out.
Do y'all have any questions for us?
Does anyone?
Yeah, I've got one. You mentioned you were doing maintenance on it that, come on back up, it's all right. What type of maintenance? You were just keeping the logs out and the streams clear and that kind of thing prior to TWRA buying the property?
I think who can answer that question perhaps best is Mr. Essery here. He farms, his farm was actually on the map up there, and he has firsthand experience maintaining the canals. So.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Cox. I hope I can speak. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm
Well, I
a
don't want the
farmer.
1920s to but just
Yeah.
basically what you were doing to keep it clean.
Well,
Mr. Esri, sorry, for the record, could you please just give your full name and where you're from?
I'm Ricky Esri. I live in Milledgeville, Tennessee, right north of the White Oak Management Area, and I'm also the chairman of the Natural Resource Conservation District in Hardin County. And my father was the chairman of the White Oak and Middleton Canal Committee back in the mid-'80s, and it got moved on to me about a couple of years before TWA bought this property. And what this consists of, the farmers, all that had land that joined this canal, I remember my daddy put in $100 a year. About all the landowners would put in $100 a year, and they'd have a meeting at the American Legion building. Then they'd hire, and it was where you could go up and down the side of it then with a tractor. So they'd drive up and down it with a tractor and chainsaws and keep the debris out of it. And if anything got plugged they couldn't get with a tractor and chainsaw, they'd take this money and hire a track hoe. Well, now back then, mostly drag lines, because we didn't see many track hoes back in that day around there. And they'd go down there and clean it out and keep it cleaned out. Well, when TWA come along and bought it, now I'm a wildlife enthusiast now. I'm not against TWA. I'm a big avid hunter. They asked us to stay off of their property, for us not to be going down there with our canal committee. We couldn't be doing that. They'd take care of it. And I think that Mr. Robertson here got a letter, one of the landowners got a letter on it about from them not to be going down there. So we quit going down there and had money left, and we actually give the money out of the committee to the American Legion building there in Milledgeville. So the canal just stopped up and kept getting worse and worse, and the water level backed up. And you asked me there a while ago you brought up, Mr. Cox, about how long it's been going on. Well, I happened just last night to look through there, and I pulled up a farm there at the north end where my daddy rented it, and this was in 1987, and there was about 350 acres here that he signed up in the agriculture program. And if you drive along there now, you can see that it's not been cultivated in 10 years. And it joins the north end of the White Oak Management Area, at the 69 and 22 junction there. And if y'all want to look at that, I can. So the canal just got stopped up, and it got to bothering our farmland. So TWA come in there right below this property on this map right here. I can show you exactly where now it's actually about 600 foot below this, where they blowed the channel, the bank out, where this canal could drain out into their woods. They owned the property and blowed that out in there. Well, for doing that, all this settlement's coming down. Like he's talking about the settlement, Mr. Sayer's talking about. We have a heavy settlement load, and it was backing out and filled that bottom up and stopped all the ditches up. And that's the reason all this land here now is so wet. It's holding water back up on it. So it's just, it ain't no way to get it off, And the beavers ain't helped. Then you're talking about the problem with the timber. That's one reason this bottom is so much timber in it. This used to be the finest timber. When my kids was little in the mid-'60s, take a three-wheeler, we'd ride all over this bottom. Anywhere you want to ride, it's clean. Trees big as them emblems right there, this TWA emblem right there. All the white oak was that big. And beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. And later on in years then, I guess it was late 90s when that all started dying, some of the local timber people there estimated $6 to $9 million worth of white oak timber there had died. And now it's all done fell down now and gone. But that's something to take 150 years for it to ever be replaced. There won't.
When you're talking about all the timber was down there, it was already channelized then?
Yes, channelized.
Okay. All right.
Good and dry. The bottom was dry. I hesitate to hear it called a swamp, because when I was growing up, it wasn't a swamp. You could ride anywhere all over the bottom you wanted to. It's just become a swamp since the mid-'80s, because the channels got stopped up and the water went to ponding up and all the settlement.
But now, one other thing, I'm on the Soil Conservation Service, and I realize that what you're talking about the settlement being such a heavy load back in the mid-'80s and '70s and '60s, we've not got that heavy a settlement load now. The farmers are gone to no-tilling and cover crop, and this settlement's not coming down this bottom like it used to be. Nothing like it. I figure we got about we probably are about 20% of what we had in the '80s settlement coming down the creeks. And I've lived here on this creek, this bottom, and I've probably been over this land here that the TWA owns probably more than anyone in this room in my lifetime. I've been all over it. But the settlement load's a lot less than it was back then. So if we get it cleaned out now, it should work better because we ain't got the settlement load coming down there.
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Esper. We appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. And just as a heads up, I think shortly we'll be taking a break to be hosted for a quick treat and also to go outside as a commission and take a quick picture. And so as we begin to get to the end of this discussion, when we do call the recess, I'll remind members we'll go straight outside for the picture, and then I'll give the time we'll return depending on when we close. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I think that completes the business of the Wildlife Committee.
Okay, well then, let me ask Frank, so what do you say? We'll come back in at 11, that'll give us 20-ish minutes to do picture and treat? Yeah, the fish are ready. There is, we're going to have a wonderful presentation on carp. And I would just say thank you so much to our farmers, and there'll be time if there's visiting between commissioners and the public during this recess. Any questions that might be remaining, want to encourage members of the commission to continue exploring and understanding of this important issue. We'll come back in at 11. We're going to have a wonderful treat that our partners in the agency have made of carp for our presentation, and then we'll continue moving forward with commission business. So without objection, we'll go into recess until 11.